Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Occult Explorers. I'm Snappy, and I'm joined by my co host, Dion. How's it going, Dion?
Hola, hola.
And today we have a special guest with us, Ryan7 of his channel, Ryan7. How are you, Ryan?
How you doing? Yeah, I'm really good, Snappy. I'm glad to be here and looking forward to talking to the peeps.
Right. So today we're doing a. Oops, sorry, guys.
All right.
Today we're doing a deep dive into the tarot. So, Ryan, you're a tarot designer, you're an artist, you've been really engaged with the tarot for a long time. It's sort of one of the big passions that you have that got you involved into this entire occult world. Do you want to talk about that for a bit before we get into your presentation on the tarot here?
Okay. Do you have a particular question, or do you just want me to talk nonsense for a couple of minutes?
Well, okay, so how did you get into the tarot, and what do you find so inspiring about it?
I got into the tarot because one night I took too many mushrooms and on a somewhat of a mystical quest. And as part of the vision, I saw my girlfriend's bedside table and the Thoth deck on the side of the table, which she had. And I'd always just thought, those silly cards, I was a young man at the time. And yeah, just from because I'd seen it in this trip, I thought, well, I should definitely follow that. And then as I did, the whole world changed.
The whole world changed. So, what do you mean? What do you find in the tarot that causes the entire world to change for you and your whole perspective?
A root cause, the beginnings of things, Snappy. It's the beginnings of things. It's the archetypes. It's those basic Lego building block units that make the human experience, if not the universe itself, but certainly the deepest parts of your psyche are mapped out there from that base father and mother archetype. That's probably the root of all our psychology: the yin, the yang, the sun, the moon. And as I'm sure most people watching this channel know, there's a great many secrets in these magical arts and things that people have noticed. And I think the reason why they're kept secret and put into these systems is A, because you don't want to cast pearls before swine, but B, they're very difficult to represent because there's such metaphysical ideas. And whoever put that system together was pretty clever. Although I do tend to believe it's built up over the generations.
Yeah, no, I think it's coming from multiple streams and kind of coalesces into what we later regard as the tarot, right? I know in our talk, we were talking about some of this. We see there's all of these holy games, holy gambling, holy card games. At the same time, there's the whole icon kind of practice that's happening in the Middle East all around that time. And all of this worship of those kind of images. So the tarot is really coming from multiple different places and different traditions that kind of coalesce first in Arabia and then again in Europe. And even then we have multiple streams. You have the more working people streams that were handmade on paper, which has largely not survived. But there's a lot of attestation for this in oral tradition, like from the Roma people. And then we have the more noble classes, for lack of a better term, right? You have those tarot decks that were born out of rich nobility in Italy and in France, like the Visconti, the Solabusca, and the Marseille tarot decks, which have survived because they all have metal printing plates, right? And a lot of these cards were protected within museums or within these upper echelons of these families, right?
Or indeed because they were so expensive to produce, like that Visconti deck that you said, which is the first deck. They're gold-leaved, hand-painted, beautiful works of art. 78 of them too, or however many there were back in those days. There are more and less tarot as you go along. But yeah, it's as you said, there was definitely like a lower class version for people playing it more as a card game, and then for the more philosophically minded, you get more expensive cards. And if you've got more money, you pay for better cards.
It's interesting though, because what I see when we engage with a lot of these symbols, and we'll unpack with you, I'm sure, is that a lot of these are kind of these primordial symbols that you find prevalent throughout various spiritual traditions across the globe. You know, they're really trying to get at, like you're talking about, this kind of secret hidden knowledge, which is why everyone is kind of playing with these symbols, and they keep kind of reoccurring across history, I think.
Oh, completely. Absolutely. I and this presentation, I hope will show, is that was the actual intention to really, I mean, on a personal level, I see the tarot as the master key to decode what the religions are really talking about. That's how I see it. You can look at Shintoism and compare it to tarot and understand what they're doing. It's just a master key to unlock all the locks.
Yeah, it's wild. And you do read, like, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Wretch, about this a while ago, about how a lot of the early tarot creators were trying to recreate a universal language system based on symbolism. You know, so they're really trying to get to that primordial language, this idea of like of recreating the language before Babel, you know, this mythopoetic imagery that is kind of transcendental in a sense. But Dion, you've been doing a bunch of research into the tarot. What's your perspective on the tarot?
Well, first, I'd like to say, in terms of divination, you have mathematics, probability, and chance. You have outcome. And so it's like flipping a coin. You have a male or female, yes or no answer. And that's the beginnings of divination and mathematics. And then later on, people build on that with different systems like the I Ching or different things around the world with complex numerical systems. Here in Tarot, you could have up to 78 different pieces, sometimes 22, and these are called spreads, let's say. But what's special about Tarot that's different than other divination systems is that they just work with mathematics and probability. Like you're flipping a coin and yes or no. But in Tarot, you got a story going on along with mathematical probabilities. That's what makes it special. The symbolism, the archetypes, the iconography combined with the mathematical chance.
On that, Dion, the actual probability of having the same spread more than once is what's called 78 factorial. That's the number 78 with an exclamation mark at the end of it. And that means it's 78 times 77 times 76 times 75, etc. Keep going down until you reach zero. And that, as I've heard it, is more atoms than are in a trillion universes. It's that big a number.
Wild.
I mean, that is literally bonkers. It's crazy enough for a normal 54 card playing deck. But when you put the 78 of the tarot in there, it just gets to phenomenal numbers.
Yeah, you know what I think is really special about it is, like I said, the story. And next you get into the story itself, the roots of the story, the characters of the story, gender, male and female, father, mother, antagonist, protagonist. Somebody's on a journey. Usually in a story, you go on a journey and there's an outcome. There's a beginning and an end. And so you see that with Tarot. It has stories built into it. Like I said, along with flipping a coin.
Yeah, it's so wild to me, too, that this stuff managed to persist throughout the early Christian tradition and the loss of what we would call paganism now. Because you see so much of these different religious and spiritual ideas that are encoded within the tarot, you know, and like Ryan, you were saying, is that a lot of this metaphysical stuff was kind of reserved for an upper elite because, you know, had it been more available to people, they could have gotten killed or gotten, you know, attacked. Like a lot of this, there's so much veiled, hidden symbolism throughout it. Like as someone who's really interested in paganism and in the Greek religion, in the Roman religion, and in other types of ancient religion, you can really look at the tarot and you see this connection to the ancient idolatry, you know, the construction of images, the sacredness of these images, how these images, like we have to remember in pre-literate societies images are telling a story, right? It's through song and image that the myth is conveyed, and these mythic images tell an entire story to people who are learned in this tradition, so you're seeing that engagement too, like Dion is talking about. It's all of this wild ancient knowledge that manages to persist in this kind of game, right?
Completely. Yes, I have nothing to add to that, Snappy. Perfect. That's
Wild.
what's happened. And you should know as well that it's at the beginning of the Renaissance. So people are naturally looking back to Greek and Roman culture and trying to copy it and bring it back to the fore. And I will also note that this style of information, this magical archetypal stuff, seems to reoccur every time there's a destruction and a rebuilding. It seems to pop back to the fore. In fact, I'm of the personal belief that this stuff is to keep civilization going. And these systems are just in case civilization ends. Now, if you look at places like Göbekli Tepe, the oldest civilization that we know of in Turkey, the symbols they're astro-theological symbols, basically, just like the tarot. And that looks, if you follow the myths, that is the era post-flood. That's after the flood, as it were, or, you might say the Younger Dryas or something like that these days, knowing a bit more. But, this information does seem to pop up whenever there's been a disaster. After the Great Fire of London, it happened over here. After the Dark Ages, the Renaissance.
Yeah, there seems to be this cyclical kind of nature to all of this, right? It really makes me think of Julian the philosopher, or Julian the apostate. He wrote a really famous hymn called "The Hymn to the Mother of Gods," and in it he talks about these cyclical destructions. Like, he describes how the oracle at Delphi foretold the destruction of Athens because they were persecuting the followers of the great mother goddess. They were persecuting the followers of Dionysus, the Maenads, and the Galli, and they were driving them out of their society. And they said that there was going to be a reckoning. And Julian saw this kind of, he kind of said, well, look, this is exactly what happened. Athens fell. But the oracles gave the people of Athens a way out. They said, build the temple of the Muses, which will be your foundation, and it will preserve your culture. So even though Athens and Greece will fall, your knowledge will persist and will become the basis for the next round. So then he talks about this whole story where during the battle with the Carthaginian Empire, the Romans were extraordinarily desperate. So they go to the oracle at Delphi and ask for advice. And the oracle tells them to bring the Black Mother, the Great Mother Cybele, from Pergamum in Turkey and install her at the Saturnine Hill. And they do this. They go and they get the eidolon and they bring it, and it's a black stone, and they install it. And then Rome manages to defeat Carthage and enters into its empire golden age, basically. So Julian was making all these wild connections, and he saw what was coming with the Christians. He said, the Christians are going to persecute the followers of the Great Mother again, and this is going to result in a collapse. We need to fight against this with everything that we have. And he tried to prevent the Christianization of Rome and was ultimately killed by his own soldiers. So it's interesting stuff,
Very much so.
But
do we know what happened to the black cube or whatever it was?
This is the thing. There's all this kind of speculation. No one knows for sure, right? It's brought to Rome. It's installed on the Saturnine Hill for the temple of the Great Mother, Magna Mater, and it's disappeared. So I imagine it's in a vault in the Vatican somewhere.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. It's not really disappeared.
Right? It's
okay,
not
Snappy. I think maybe we should start this presentation because
I was just about to,
long. Yeah.
All right. So this is your presentation that you made for us. Amazing stuff. So I'll let you go on from here and just tell me when you want me to change slides.
Okay. So this presentation was originally put together because an author acquaintance of mine, quite famous and published, he loves the Marseille Tarot. I'm not going to name his name, by the way, because I did that last time. I don't think he was too happy about it. So he's obsessed with the Marseille Tarot. And he was adamant that there was nothing spooky or hidden in the tarot, and that he was quite certain of it. And I thought to myself, this guy being a publisher, a pretty famous publisher of the occult literature, I was shocked. And he said, well, write me a book. I'm writing a book, mate. It's taking forever. It's on a totally different subject. I'm not starting another one now. I've got a presentation coming up at the weekend, so I'll put this together for you. So my main gripe with him was that he'd said, it's just a game. So we got chill, it's only a game, brah, versus, no, it's full of the magics.
That's a good way to set it up. That's awesome.
Cool. So here is a selection sample of some of the older tarot, working up to the 20th century. We got sets of 3. So the first set of 3 is the Fool. Beneath that, the next set of 3 is the Hanged Man. Top right, the Magician, and the bottom right, the Devil. Through the rest of the presentation, I'm going to use mostly the cards on the top left there, the Visconti deck, because they're the oldest deck. And I figure if I'm going to prove this, it might as well be with the oldest deck. There we go. So we've got the Visconti deck, and then we've got the Dodal deck, and then we've got the Rider-Waite deck on that top row at the left. So, as I say, this is actually going through the years. There's a couple of hundred years between each of those decks. The first one in about 1440, something like that, 1445, the Visconti deck. So, again, Renaissance period, and they come from northern Italy. They were a wedding gift between 2 families, the Visconti and the Sforza family.
Oh, wild.
Okay, so the argument on the side of the no, it's just a game. They actually started in Egypt when some Arab conquerors called the Mamluks took paper from China and then printed a card game on there. They were originally called trionfi, which mean in Italy, which is just means trumps. They're also called tarocchi. We'll get into the etymology later, and by doing that, we'll pull a lot of things apart. So whereas you normally put the etymology at the beginning, we'll get that about halfway through. So it's essentially when you play the game, it's like, I don't know if you have it in Canada or in the States, but we have a game over here called Top Trumps. Trumps is in the trumps, the trionfi. And at Top Trumps is like you'll have a racing car and then lots of statistics underneath it. And whoever's got it's a child's game. Whoever's got the best statistics, speed, 200 miles an hour. Oh, I've only got 78 miles an hour. I win your card. That's the game. We also have a game that's in England called Excretion Head. You can see it there in the middle. I don't know what it's called in the States, but it's basically a trumping game. You're trying to lay a higher card down so that the person has to pick up all the cards. You want to get rid of all your cards.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So that's pretty much it for tarot. Apart from the fact that we have all these very complex cards with no names on them, no values to them, and there are at the beginning I think there are about 18 of them. These extra cards added to the normal standard playing deck, but there's no value to them, and they don't have any difference between one's no higher than the other. It just doesn't make any sense. And people say, oh, it's just for gambling, and I say to that, those original cards are very beautiful and very well put together, and I wouldn't be playing any gambling games with those. The more they would be for looking at and experiencing, but I don't know because I'm not alive in 1450.
Right. No, but it makes a lot of sense to think that, when we look at these cards, they're incredibly huge. And like you said, there is normally in a card game, you want to have the information presented directly on the card. but the main focus is these art pieces, right? So the art is fundamental with the Visconti deck, you know.
Yeah, and a few sweaty fingers or drunken sneezes, and those cards are going to be destroyed. So I'm not, and gambling does tend to come with a bit of alcohol. So
right. I think it's also important that we point out, though, that, you know, gambling is a part of a lot of this kind of magic and probability in mathematics. So in my mind, it coming out of a card game makes a lot of sense. And also, I always think, like, we got to remind ourselves, what time period is this coming out of the Mamluk Empire? This is during the Islamic Renaissance, when they're mass translating all of the Greek and Byzantine texts, and they're at the forefront of science and literature and art, right? Like, this is the most advanced culture in the world at this time that's producing these cards, you know? So it's not just coming out of a single tradition or single idea, right?
No, there's absolutely a messed up lineage coming from all kinds of directions, and you know, the whole thing about the Renaissance is that they're looking back. So they're not just looking back in the West, they're looking back in the East, they're looking back up north and down south. So so here's my point. As I read, even these earliest tarots are actually chock full of the mysteries, and I have several scientific proofs as well as some spurious proofs during this presentation. So I think it's important that we talk about first, set down, and you're something of an expert on this, Snappy, what the mysteries were, so then we can then pull them out of these cards. So I'm just going to read these. In fact, would you like to read them, Snappy, if you read them one at a time?
It says, mysteries are death, rebirth, sex, drugs, harmonic maths, put into stars and calendars. The rites of the old pole god Saturn. The poles are used as exemplars of the innermost secrets.
Yes. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, right? We know that the ancient mysteries were all about the preservation of life and to reconnect you to the cycles so that you could understand through and process and deal and cope with death, right? It's the art of learning how to die. A lot of this philosophy and the ancient religion was all about this, okay? And as you point out, it's sex and drugs and harmony, whether it's musical or mathematical. These are the three pillars that get you there. So that's a perfect, you know, because when we're talking about the mysteries, you're talking about many different traditions and ideas that are all getting at a similar kind of enlightenment ideal, right? I don't think that the Western idea or the Eastern ideas of enlightenment are any different than what's happening in the ancient mysteries of the West. You know, it's just we're portraying them from different cultural standpoints, right?
Yeah, those are just aesthetic additions according to taste.
Exactly.
So I've put I'll read this bit. So to continue, the mysteries are a hologramic representation of psyche through calendrical cosmic maps. So think of the zodiac. That can quite easily be viewed as the psyche, different aspects of psyche. As above, so below, i.e. what's going on up there is the same down here. It's all about time, rebirth, death, cycle, as you put it, Snappy. B, it's a method of gaining temporary immortality. Immortality not quite meaning what most people think it means. It means to not be mortal anymore, i.e. not down here. By use of drugs in sex rites for gnosis, healing, and prophecy.
Right. What the ancients would term ionic life. Sorry.
Ionic life. Absolutely, yeah. Ion's the main focus of the book I've been writing. But anyway, to continue. The exemplars of the poles, used secretly by Sumerians, Persians, Chinese, Jews, Mayans, Masons, Templars, alchemists. I see certain mystics' eyes light up because it's not a thing often discussed, all this pole stuff. And I find it to be at the very, very center of all the secrets. And we'll see lots of that in the presentation. Sorry, Snappy?
I was just going to say, the polls, this is something that I'm super interested in. you know, because I'm really interested in these in the magic that they use to flip the poles, to cause revolutionary change, and for the cycles to persist. And like, there's always this kind of catalyst point that you see. And when you really read a lot of these ancient Greek mysteries, at the heart of them is this unfolding of these cycles where you have these god deities who become, they start out as liberators and then they become tyrannical until there's this feminine energy that causes the pole to flip. And that which was on the bottom being dragged in the dirt is now on top. And this is the image they use, right? And the goddess is usually seen as this wearer of the scales of balance, you know, or the power behind the throne, the one who sits upon the throne, right? And wields the scepter. The scepter is sort of seen as this masculine phallus, which is why the tyrants are usually these male deities who have to be then disposed of and transformed before they're reborn again. You know, this is the secret of a god like Dionysus and Saturn, right? Saturn is that same energy, but in that tyrannical form that has to be brought low. And then Dionysus is him's return after having paid for his sins, kind of.
Dionysus is so cool. Anyway, right. So, when the poles are combined with calendars, a sacred mathematics is revealed, used in ancient architecture, music, and time, and the tarot. And we can see those in, you know, if we want to see an example of that, Shatra Cathedral, or the pyramids,
or the Hagia Sophia, right? There's so many examples across these ancient worlds. Petra in the Middle East, you know, like a lot of these places are employing a lot of magical sacred geometry. Like the most prominent would be, of course, you know, the Egyptian pyramids. But still, you can see this in many different cultures in many different forms.
Absolutely. Okay, so just to show you how the ancients, or even the recents, were looking at these things, we said that was all this magic stuff is more often than not condensed and taught through calendars. So we can see now how on this chap on the left, we can see how all the planets line up with different parts of the body. And that then is juxtaposed to their actual cosmos, their cosmic map, where we can see the chain of being, as it were, going from the very top, the pleroma, or I'd say that's a bit more Kabbalistic. That would be something like Ein Sof, which is the limitless light, unlimited light, and all this kind of stuff. We come down into the pleroma, then we go through like the fixed band of stars, past Saturn, and we are, as we're going through each one of these layers, us being the cosmos itself, and then kind of condensating down with more layers added on, more seals to the body, until finally we plop out at the bottom, as it were, as human beings with all these seals put on us. And the mystic's path is to release those seals and get back to the top again while you're still alive, i.e. dying before you die.
Yeah, reforming that cosmic person at the beginning of creation, that Phanes, that Dionysus, right? That is that representation of that. Or in like Hindu, where you have the Purusha Prajapati, that person who's ripped apart or sacrificed and becomes the unfolding of matter, you know?
Yep, the early stories, the twin myths, that one twin has to sacrifice the other, or a cow and tear it apart. Or you could talk about Tiamat, the dragon, who Marduk destroys and cuts into little parts and then makes the world from it. You go against chaos. Yeah. So you go against something new, the chaos. You bump into the chaos. You might die, but if you survive it, you've usually discovered something new, and then we build the world from it.
100%, right? This idea of facing the other, that chaos, right? It's a transformative action, right? If you're able to survive the encounter, then you're fundamentally made different. And that's a really important point. And I also want to just point out, like, this is also done like in many different ways in the tarot, right? Like you see also through this gender kind of philosophy, where you have at the center that, you know, like the alchemical rebus, or the divine hermaphrodite, or, you know, that cosmic person again. And it's a psychological mode as well, where every person has to become whole through connecting to their other, whether that's male or female or what have you. But there's this understanding that to be that full cosmic person, you have to connect with your other half, you know?
Yep, absolutely. Can we move on to the next slide, please, Snappy?
Yeah.
Let me just have a little burp here. Excuse me, everybody. Okay, so on this ancient cosmos, this map of the psyche being present in the tarot, being calendrical, if we look to the top right in the purple letters, we can see that the actual structure of the tarot itself is absolutely a calendar. The 4 aces represent the 4 seasons. You got 40 number. So we're going to do a little maths here, but it's really easy. So you got your 40 number cards. So let's talk about the actual divisions of the tarot quickly first before I move on to that. So we're going to look at these white words on the left. 78 cards, 21 major arcana, 1 fool, which is like a wild card, 16 court cards, which are your kings, queens, jacks from normal decks. We've got 40 numbered cards, which is like your normal number cards from a normal deck of cards. And instead of 3 suits, we've got 4 suits. Each suit is a season, as it were. Each of the aces is a season. So we got, when you start adding these cards together and these numbers, 78, 21, 16, 44, you start to get calendrical numbers. So obviously I just said 4 aces are the suits, 4 seasons. 40 number cards minus 4 aces is 36 decans, or degrees in a circle. 36 and 4 aces and 1 fool is 365 days in a solar year. 36 cards, 4 aces, 364 days in a lunar year. We could go on. You can pause this, everybody, after you've seen it and read the rest. Then we have the 4 elements in here as well, which is a instant sign of there being magic hidden in these things. We've got staves for fire, also known as wands or clubs, cups for water, sword for air, and the coins for earth. These are all classic elements in Aikido. I was explaining to somebody the other day. Aikido, Japanese art. That's an air art. They call it an air art. They call it a sword art as well. And if you look at Aikido, every single one of their moves is done as if they've got a sword in the hand. So if you're getting thrown, they're throwing you like they would cast a sword. So rife are these analogies for the elements that they appear even in Japan.
Wild.
Not only medieval Italy.
Right.
So,
no, it's everywhere, right? No, and this is something like a lot of people aren't aware of how deep this stuff goes. Like I was reading, you know, with the Thoth deck, Crowley has a whole method which is very similar to this, where you can basically, using the number cards, get to specific like weeks. You can figure out when stuff is meant to happen, you know.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So let's, in the spirit of brevity, let's continue. Right. So on the left, for anybody that wants to look at this later, is actually the divisions within the tarot. You got the Fool on its own. Then we've got 3 sets of 7, which is the red, the green, and the blue. Within that, we have a few other divisions as well, but we don't need to go into that too much. What I want to get to is the fact that the tarot is based on Pythagorean number symbology. That when you look at, there are 9 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 0 is a placeholder. Back to the beginning, that's 10. Keep going up. So when you look at the philosophy of numbers in this Pythagorean tradition, which isn't necessarily from Pythagoras, it goes way back. Pythagoras famously collected all these things together. However, when you compare those 9 numbers together and see what the function is when you start adding them together, dividing them, multiplying them, you get a character because of the way they work against each other. So the number 1 has a character perfectly described by the magician, this first card. What is the number 1? Well, I'm a 1, you're a 1, but we're both humans. That's a 1. We all live on the Earth. There's another one. There's a whole solar system. That's a one. So we're lots of ones making up bigger ones. Everything's a one. The whole thing's a one made up of lots of tiny ones. And because we've got 9 numbers to go, or indeed in the tarot, we've got 22 cards to get through, but we've got 9 numbers to go. And so the number 1 is the base of all those numbers. 2 is just one more. 3 is 1, 1, and 1. We're always looking at 1 and more. It's difficult to explain this, Snappy, but that is like an index. It's the you open the book, you read the index of the book, you can see everything that's going to come, but there's no information there yet. It's not experienced. The fool hasn't gone through the tarot yet to accumulate all this wisdom. The number 1 hasn't experienced 2ness, 3ness yet. It's just number 1. So it's very much like an index. And to that matter, the magician has the cup, the wand, all these instruments that are represented by those 4 fire, water, air, and earth cards on his table. This very early version of the magician was, they weren't named, but he's actually a scribe if you look at it, and his tools are the tools of a scribe. He's got his wand, he's got a blade, got 2 coins, a cup, and what looks like a hat, which is actually a sponge that you'd wipe your little quill on there. Already we're getting hints that he's Mercury. Mercury's a translator. Mercury's a scribe. Mercury's a trickster. If we could look really close at the card, and we will later on, we'll see that he's got a bit of a strange look on his face, that what's being presented here isn't necessarily the truth. So we've talked about the number 1, and I could talk about the number 1 for an hour. However, we need to get through all these slides. So let's talk about the number 2 for a second. If the number 1 is that the kind of masculine I, the active I, the me, 2 would be a you, and over there, a not me, a feminine, as it were. So the second card's a lady. The number 3 is like the number 1 got together with the number 2, had a little baby, and the number 2 got pregnant with 3. Well, there's a pregnant lady on the 3rd card. That baby then becomes a 4th thing, the earth, and then it carries on in another cycle again. He's the first card, just grown up. Then we have if you get me,
For sure.
1 is singularity, 2 duality, 3 a trinity, 4 a quaternity, and then we go back round again. Simply done. Again, if anyone wants to look into this further, please do. It's very, very interesting, and that is the basis of all these systems, the archetypal meaning of number.
Yeah, and it's that base 4 sets, right? That's really important, because you see that representative everywhere in the I Ching, in lots, and even in a lot of like African spirituality, like Ifa. It's base number 4. That gives you the cube, right? Which is that Saturnian magic, this unfolding of the squares and the hexagons and the octagon. I'm sure you'll get into it.
As Pythagoras would say, you can get to 10, 10 being a perfect number. You can get to 10 just through 1, 2, 3, and 4. You just add those together, you get 10. So right. Let's move on to the next card.
So we got the Fool here. You did the Fool again, or?
Yeah, so we got the Fool. So again, on the trying to prove that, all these magical systems are put into calendars, and that tarot is a calendrical system. The very first card, the Fool, his name in Hebrew is Kesel, which is the name for Orion. So Kesel means fool. The Fool is Orion. Kesel means Orion. It's all the same thing, and it's well known in tarot circles that the Fool is Orion. So it's not nothing weird. And as further proof, we can see, although it's actually an ocelot, there's a dog in the card on the right, nipping at the genitals of the Fool there. Well, yeah, that ocelot stroke dog is Sirius, the dog star, which we can see in the map on the left. Sirius pointing at the genitalia of Orion there.
Wild. That's so
Go
interesting. You know, and the
Hang on.
Fool is such an interesting card because it's both, like you pointed out, right? It's 0 and 1 because it's like it's the absurdity of creation itself. So it kind of stands outside of the entire system, you know, but is
Yeah.
also present within it. You know, it's a really this is the secret card, right? That's the Fool's journey that you go on. You know, to get back
Yes.
to the beginning is also the end.
Yeah, well, it's known to certain people that he's also card 21.
Right.
So out of 22 cards. Anyway, let us continue. So we've got another 3 astronomical cards here. We've got Strength, which is associated with Leo. We've got the Wheel of Fortune, which is literally the ecliptic. It's the planets spinning around your head. And the Sun, which is the Sun. So straight away, it's not just a game. We've got these calendars built into it. And not just calendars, we've got the zodiacal calendars in there, which are absolutely fundamental to magic in the West.
Yeah. And they're present, like you said. You can't deny this connection here.
No, exactly. So this slide is to present that there's a formula in each of these cards. So I've put the formula at the top for the Hermit card, which is card 9. So you've got it's in red at the top: Saturn plus Virgo plus Mercury plus 9 the Moon. Why those things together? Well, naturally in the sequence, you can forget Saturn for now because Saturn's kind of more. I would have liked to now thinking about it. I would have liked to put Virgo plus Mercury plus 9 Moon equals Saturn. That would have been a better way of putting it. So why Virgo? Well, we've gone through in the order of the cards. We've already gone through, you know, the Leo, and before that we went through Cancer, and then before that we went through Gemini. So it's natural that we'd come up to a card that needs to be Virgo. Mercury rules Virgo. Not only does he rule Virgo, but he's exalted in Virgo. So it's very right that should be here. And we're on card 9, which Kabbalistically and numerologically is associated with the moon. So all we do is add these things together and we get the Hermit. So what time of year is Virgo, Snappy?
September. You know,
The end of the harvest, the end of season. Yeah. Well, that says me like a late middle-aged man. If the year was a life, then it's a late middle-aged man. Virgo naturally is the kind of, so a virgin was a lady who didn't have a husband for whatever reason, and especially in the middle age period, you know, these definitions change. But she had to go out and work for herself. Basically, there's nobody to go and do any work for her. So a lady's work was with things like going collecting hay and things like that. You know, going pulling in the crops. You know, you pick it up and pull it back and then sort it out. Well, these ideas are very transposable to the idea of analysis, and Virgo is indeed, we can see there it says I analyze. But Virgo is this analytical star sign. Saturnian thinking would be very analytical. All these things just kind of coalesce, without going into too much detail and getting stuck here. All these things coalesce and are pulled together. So if you've got a middle-aged man that's doing the moon's associated with the subconscious, so he's looking within. We've got Mercury, which is this idea of a dialectic and communication, so he's talking to himself. We've got Virgo, which is this idea of a deep analysis and sorting out. And then Saturn, which is this life, death, the end of things, trouble. So these things would naturally end in a hermit. What is a hermit? Well, a hermit is a guy that leaves society, much like a Buddhist monk would, and he goes and studies death. That's why he's got a timepiece, because he's studying his time here. He sticks to support him. He starts to keep his head warm and for to keep a few secrets in there. which we'll go into later. You can see this kind of idea of this fetching capacity and this underworld idea, and that he's going deep down and in. We have a picture of Herman Ubis there, which is this underground fetching capacity going into the depths, bringing out whatever's inside out and fetching it back. Yeah. So go on.
It also makes me think of just like in the Greek tradition, Virgo is associated with Demeter, the great mother of the harvest. But her main story is about her alone searching for her daughter. She dons the black cloak, and then she takes a torch and goes out into the wilderness to try and find her who's been stolen, taken to the underworld. So it's this whole thing about going into the underworld too, to reclaim what was lost and to give birth to something new. The end of that story is through the help of others like Hecate and with Dionysus. They're able to bring Persephone back, and she is reborn in the spring. And that's a result of this hermitage, of this going out and searching, and of this deep inner reflection. Again, you're talking about Saturn. Saturn, to me, that energy is all about that. You've been brought low and made to reflect upon the past. It's time now that you look at everything that has happened in order to make a change or an adaptation, in order to persist forward. So the hermit is that figure who's now in this reflective state of doing that shadow work, trying to figure out, okay, what has happened on my life? What do I do with this knowledge? How do I rebirth myself? And
that's the exact reason why the hermit looks so concerned.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next. Okay, so here's just 3 quick illustrations. So I'd say that is pretty much proof of the tarot as a calendrical system, and is completely related to the calendar. And these ideas form the basis of each card. So now we've got 3 images, one depicting mortality, one gnosis, and one prophecy, even though these things are all interrelated. We can see an alchemical image there of a nice man looking through the fixed stars to the wheels within the wheels that are the Platonic realm of ideas, and to the modern mind, it would be something like the place where the laws of physics are stored. I
always think of this kind of image as like it's that ionic life, right? It's breaking outside of that Saturnian cube of the universe, and it's going outside of time. You're no longer bound by the laws of the universe, right? It's breaking free, and like you said, seeing everything how it works.
How it all works, yeah. Behind him is a tree, which is, again, we'll see lots of this Paul idea stuff, which we can see even better explained in the next image on, an alchemical image of the Red King and the White Queen, even though the Red King's gone a bit yellow here. We can see the Holy Spirit stroke Mercury coming down where the male and the female have crossed. Mercury appears, bringing down a star from heaven, and we know what drawing down the stars means, don't we, Snappy?
Yeah.
So that third pole, again, we're getting at the pole stuff. Where these 2 cross over, we get a pole, and then we've got you probably better qualified to talk about the Greek stuff than me, but we have probably a Pythian oracle. Sniffing fumes and doing, I think, is that laurel? I don't know. They did a lot of different drugs, those Greeks.
Yeah, we know for sure. Well, what's more important than the drugs is that she's sitting upon the tripod, right? This would be the stand in which the porneia would be collected and then drank, which it's a lot of people like to speculate about the fumes, and the fumes are part of it, but more essential is the porneia. It's that human biotransformation and creation of sex drugs, which becomes like the Gnostic Mass and all this other stuff. But that would cause her to enter into a frenzy, and you'd have to have other priestesses listen to her words and try to translate. That's where you get the screams of like the Maenads, right? Like the these orgasmic screams, Io, and all of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you can't help but imagine what it would be like to be present for something like this. And I've got to say, it would probably be very frightening.
Absolutely
and disturbing.
terrifying. You got to remember, right? These are young teenage women, who are just, at the right before puberty or just after puberty, who have been on drug regimens their entire life to affect these biochemical transformations. They got datura in their hair.
Yeah.
Like, this is not any modern psychonaut stuff. This is something that's truly next level, right?
They probably looked, I mean, she's a beautiful lady, but they probably didn't look like that. There were probably quite a few genetics getting at your chromosomes and stuff. If you're using serpent venoms and whatnot, you probably don't look as pleasant as that. He's probably got skin problems and strange bone growths and all sorts. But anyway,
yeah,
let's go on to the next image. So, on the subject of drugs, I just want to show everybody quickly that, mushrooms were always all over the place. And just because our scholars were ignoring them doesn't mean that they weren't there the whole time. So there's a very ancient cave painting on the bottom right there, on the bottom left, sorry, of a mushroom shaman man with a mushroom head and mushroom shoulders and mushroom legs and mushroom everything.
Amazing.
On the top left, we have Mithras wearing his red and white spotty dress and his Persian pants there with a mushroom stem leading up to a mushroom. We'll often see in visual the visual arts that mushrooms are often hidden in the folds of clothing. Like, more often than not, there'll be, if you're guessing this seems a bit psychedelic to me, look in the folds of clothing and you'll probably see mushrooms there. Again, the scholars will bat it off like, no, they're always drawing things like that. Yeah, they kind of are, but no, not like that.
Dion, you joined us at the perfect time, because we're just talking about drugs and old paintings, and this is something that you are quite the expert in, And he was just describing how you often see mushrooms in the folds of clothes, right? And we know you do all the color stuff. Oh, you're on mute, by the way, Dion.
There you go. Oh, I've been listening, and it's been excellent so far. Amazing. And now we're getting into those mycology. I like that world.
It's quite fun, isn't it, Dion?
Well, we know too, like the mushrooms are so essential. Like, Carl Ruck makes this argument about the Greek rites. You have a lot of different scholars talk about the various prominence of mushrooms in the early Vedic rites. We know that they were popular in the Iranian rites, and well, it's one of these things where it's like, it's certainly prevalent in being done by spiritual, magical people all over, right?
Yeah.
And it's certainly encoded in all these images. Now, how much... Go ahead, sir.
I think they're actually using it often. I think because it's so visually beautiful and iconic, especially the Amanita mushroom, the fly agaric, that I think often they're using it as a substitute or as an icon for all the other drugs that they might be using, as they do with the serpent.
Yeah, no, for sure. They're definitely talking about a polypharmacology, right? But it's like the mushrooms, or I didn't mean to put that up there. What the heck? How do I get rid of this? Sorry, guys. I had a troll that I was trying to block there.
You exposed them.
I exposed them. But yeah, and you definitely, like, the mushroom takes on such a symbolic kind of thing for drugs in general, right? Like that red color and the spotted white. It's such a it's such a symbol to those in the know, right?
Yeah.
All right, we'll continue.
So Dion was just mentioning sorry, if you flip back to the last one again,
sure.
Please, Snappy. Dion was just mentioning the I think it was you actually. Somebody said Iranians, and there you go. There's the Persian rug of a Zoroastrian stroke Mithraic priest handing a mushroom to his king. We've got some Cathar biblical stuff with Adam and Eve there in the top right, with the tree of life is literally a load of mushrooms. And then we've got Alchemia in the bottom right, which is an alchemical image. And, those, you can see that she's supposed to be a mushroom. She's in the colors of the mushroom. And I will note that the colors of alchemy are black, white, yellow, and red. and those are the colors of the mushroom. If we look at the actual photograph of the mushroom, we see the soil at the bottom of the mushroom, which is actually grown in to the skin. You can't get rid of it unless you properly scrub it and you're taking away layers of skin. So there's the black. And we've got the white. The yellow is just underneath the red layer, and then you got the red at the top. And if you look at a lot of images from alchemy where they're describing, where they're showing you those four colors, you'll see somebody, usually little boys urinating, stood on a mushroom, or you might see a knight stood over two wells. And if you look closely enough, you'll notice details of mushrooms they've got. Like, obviously, not trying to hide it, apart from the fact that it's tiny.
Yeah,
Again,
the urination is another important symbol, because we know that oftentimes you would have the shaman who would ingest large amounts of the Amanita muscaria, process the muscal with their body, transmute it into through, like, you can drink the urine and you'll get rid of a lot of the toxins that are present in the mushroom. Yeah. So sometimes the shamans are doing this. Sometimes they're reindeer or they're cows or they're bulls. Like Dionysus is often associated with bulls. We know they're using the bulls to process these mushrooms.
Yeah. And as Dr. Rook said, that one of the first things that they say about a mushroom is, looking in the past, is that when they pop out of the ground, you hear the roar of a bull. And obviously they grow, psilocybin mushrooms grow on cow pads. So
also when the lightning strikes, you know,
yes,
so there's
absolutely.
all of this stuff. And then you've done heroic journeys on mushrooms that you've obviously have experienced. You talked about it at our last interview.
No, I did. I know. Yes, I have. I've taken lots and lots of mushrooms many times.
But you know what I mean? There's that thunderclap type feeling that a lot of people have, right? And I think that's there's a lot of this lightning imagery, the flying imagery is, magic carpets, all this stuff. It's actually an association with this kind of drug use,
Yep. Magic carpet, Syrian rue. Yeah, there's so many. I'm sure Dion knows all about this stuff.
Dion goes deep into it. Wretch goes deep into it.
So if we look at the next image, please, Snappy.
Yeah.
So now we're kind of, we got this cosmology. We've talked about this maths a little bit. We've talked about the drugs. And we get into as I've put here, like a shamanic science. That shamanism and science and art and religion, they're all bound up together in the past. There's no real differentiation. And so we often see these snakes going up a pole, the snakes meaning many things. Sometimes it means fate, the ecliptic. There's always a suggestion of altered states from the snake venom, often going up a pole. So that one, I think, is the picture on the left is from Sumeria. The next picture in it is Fuxi and Nuwa from China, who we can see the serpents going up to the top. If you look in the skirt, we can see mushrooms in the skirt. We can see one's holding a square and a compass, and constellations, the Chinese constellations mapped out around them. And I'll also say, actually, for something coming up later on, the points and the geometry of that image is a very secret pattern that's present in all the greatest occulted works, including the pyramids, Stonehenge.
We also have this amazing symbol of the spinning wheel, right? Which is often also depicted as a swastika and is one of the most primordial human symbols, We see this in the earliest cave paintings even. So,
oh, Snappy, I have such a secret coming for you at the end of this presentation. If we don't, we must carry on. So anyway, then we see a similar, so we got this male and female coming together. Mercury has the caduceus one, which is the male and the female coming together. The serpents, the Mercury is the hermaphrodite. Well, he's not the hermaphrodite, but he
gives birth to the hermaphrodite.
He gives birth to it, yeah.
Yeah.
And it is this kind of masculine, feminine trickster character anyway. And we see, again, in the folds of his cloak, obvious mushrooms.
Yeah, wow. You can really tell them on the right, just below the elbow there. If people look in the central image, like those are clear mushroom caps.
Yeah, beautiful. And stems. Nice chunky stems there. And then again, we have the same image repeated in alchemy, doing the mushroom pose. You just take that silhouette, it's a mushroom. 3 serpents in a cup. the
And we have
usual stuff.
again that
Stood on-
tree symbol too, right? Like
Yeah, which is the spine or the pole, and we're activating all the different, we know them as chakra now, but the various different stations on the tree of life. And again, stood on the moon, which is a representation of I'm ruling the subconscious here.
right, and it's that divine Rebbe as well that we see in a lot of the French alchemical tradition. Beautiful.
We'll see that later on. Don't you worry. So if we go to the next slide. Okay, so mushrooms in the deck. So that top left image is the magician close up, and if you look at his eyes, that guy's had a few substances. If we look underneath that to the priestess, if we look at her left leg, which is on our right, but her left leg is very suspiciously like a mushroom. And then when I went to look at other decks, remembering that Liberty Cap comes, which is Psilocybe semilanceata, which is the most common mushroom in Europe, comes from the word for book. I know liberty is as in freedom, but liber is a book.
Right.
There she is with a book on her knee. And if you're looking at it, pretty obvious mushroom. I wasn't completely sure it was a mushroom until I found a repaint of the deck from a similar time, and it's pretty obviously a mushroom on that repaint.
Also, Liber is Dionysus in Roman, right? That's his Roman name. One of them, Liber or Bacchus.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit of Mithras in there as well.
Of course.
If we look on the far right card, we've got the Lovers card, and we can see, you'll know about this, Snappy, but Eros is always there whenever Aphrodite's around, and we're getting at drugs references here. And quite frankly, you've got that, as we had with Fusey and Noir and with Mercury, we got this masculine and feminine going up a pole. Oh, look, a young man and a young lady about a pole, which is also a mushroom. Same thing again. And there are many times in religions that mushrooms are depicted as umbrellas. You see it in Buddhism. I've got a little icon of there are eight magical instruments for the Buddhists, and one of them's a parasol. And when you look at it, it's the little black and white image next to the main card.
Right, I see
pretty
that.
obviously a mushroom. Yeah. If we look on the umbrella itself, we can see the Visconti coat of arms, which is this blue dragon eating a little red mushroom child. And from Europe to the Aztecs, a dragon or a serpent guy eating a person's always a representation of you're on drugs. It's literally that guy's he's been devoured by the serpent. He's on the drugs. And they said that the Visconti family wouldn't, the army wouldn't set up camp anywhere until that dragon had been put in a tree.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, and this stuff with the Eros, right? Like you said, it does get into some scary magic, but it also gets into this idea of like, there are two Eroses within the Greek tradition. You have Eros as the active force of Aphrodite, her power that exists within the physical world. But then you have what they call the cosmogonic Eros, which is Eros that is at the start of creation, that causes that divine person, right? The intersexed faunes to rip themselves apart, because it is through the desire to know, which knowledge and sex are the same, right? We got to understand that the ancients saw these things as as intrinsically related. So this desire for the other and to know the other causes faunes to split themselves into two, become male and female, right? The sun and the moon. And this is clearly this kind of analogy of this coming back, right?
Yes.
Completely. As well as this expanding out. The Lover's card goes both directions. All the cards do.
Goes both ways, Snappy.
Yeah.
So then we've got, we can see a lady drawing down the star. Drawing down the stars. Now, if you're looking a lot of them, she's probably grabbing a hold of that thing. She's not like lifting it up. She's grabbing it. And if we look at the shape of a dress, again in the folds of clothes. We can see a mushroom shape. We've got a clear stem running down the middle, and then just beneath a hand, which is in a very unusual place. That is a strange position to put a hand in. We've got
Unless
a
she's
little furrow,
pregnant.
unless she's pregnant. But what's she pregnant with?
Right.
If we look at the dress itself, I've done two little blow-ups, two little zoom-ins in blue just next to her of her dress. And that is the image on it. It looks exactly like a mushroom. It's just striations coming down and then a stem. And that's all over a dress. And I thought, well, that's pretty good proof. But when I looked at the next card on the moon card, which is the feet at the bottom, you know, we can see the legs and the feet. You can actually see those same striated little cone things growing out of the ground.
Interesting. Yeah, let's take a look here. Oh, that's
Oh, I'll tell you what, Snappy. Why don't you can talk about the hermit for a moment, can't you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you know, the hermit, right? We were just going about them, right? They're representative of that energy of the monastic, of the person who has reached that point in their life when they're now entering that Saturnian phase of self-reflection. And they're doing the hard work of trying to figure out how to die and be reborn, where they're trying to go into themselves to cause that rebirth so that they can give birth to the spring. So this is that dark moment of winter. And like you're pointing out here, this is wild, is like the Amanita muscaria mushroom cap. Like that's pretty absolute. And again, like this is that Saturnian energy, right? The old man with time, that is the Chronos energy we have. Again, he's walking with the pole, right? And he's walking in, you know, in the tarot deck, right? He's facing backwards. He's going, you know, where they face is actually kind of important to a certain degree.
Important.
Whether they're coming back to the Fool or they're extending outward into the creation. And the hermit is someone who's actively working back, you know, so this is representative of that person who's gone through the process of creation, you know, and is now actively trying to return to the one, you know.
And he does that via three items you'll often see a hermit with. You'll see him with the egg timer, the sand timer while he boils his eggs. He's got his sand timer. He'll have a skull because he's looking, well, the sand timer because life and death. He's only got so much time. The skull because life and death. He's only got so much time. And he's also got a raven often with him, especially in Christian iconography. Now, why a raven? Well, ravens bring hermit's bread that he uses to get into these deep places. And when you quickly look at what hermit's bread is, it's Amanita muscaria.
Amazing.
And here on the top right, we have an actual Christian image. I'm not sure which saint it's supposed to be. I can't remember. But he's got a cup with a serpent in it and a raven bringing in bread. So if that's not for you and I, Snappy, knowing what we know, that's absolute proof.
Absolute proof, like total proof, you know. And I also want to point out that a lot of this is also primordial Saturnian imagery. Like when you look at like the god Odin is kind of this Saturnian Dionysus figure, right? They're the god of the frenzy. They're that old man who's also the poet and the master of knowledge. And they're really representative of this divine hermit energy, that person who kind of is in that reflective mode, going back.
He hangs himself on a tree and gets the runes and loses an eye and all those other things. Exactly. And I will say as well that ravens are carrion birds. So after a war or after something's died, you'll often see ravens. Ravens will take a hunter to a corpse. And then you might see them, as they would see it, taking the soul away. Flying off, taking the soul away. And so raven's bread.
It's important too that we point out that like in a lot of the earlier Greek imagery, they talk about eagles, but really the eagles they're referring to are not like that American image of the bald eagle as this graceful, powerful bird. They're looking at these European eagles as carrion birds. And the raven vultures, is just the northern, is vultures. And the raven is the northern European variant of this. So the eagle switches. So again, this is that bird that brings death, that eats the liver of Prometheus, right? So we're looking at this cycle again of death and rebirth repeating.
And just to add that, the whole Promethean thing is so wrapped up with drugs.
Yeah.
We get the word narcotic from his little stick that he has that he keeps his drugs in there. But anyway,
Yeah.
on to the next card. On to the next slide, please, Snappy. Right, here we go. I promised some etymology before, and this I'm quite proud of this. So we've got the Cairo in the top left. Then we have the Stauro, or the Tauro in the middle. Tauro. A tau is the letter T, and a ro, which is a P in Greek. Tauro. So we've got, it's often called a stauro or a staurogram, and we know about STR root words, don't we, Snappy?
Yeah. Relates always to those drugs, right? Specifically, usually cannabis.
Yeah.
And the power of the gaze, right?
Yeah, and it's all to do with those Saturn cults, STR again.
Yeah.
So in Phoenician, a tau is a cross, simply a cross. And a ro, it kind of means your head or above. So we've got this kind of a calendrical thing. It's the sphere of the globe as it goes over your head in a semicircle. So we got TP or TR for Tauro. We got Cairo for the Cairo. Don't forget that the tarot were originally called Taroki, Taroki. So you got the T, the PR, and the X, the key. And then I've put underneath that Cairo, which was originally called Ros Tau, Tauro. And then you've got Rose Cross, as in the Rosicrucians, because that Chi is just a cross, crux. So you know, it's all looping back onto itself, and this same way of phrasing this magical tradition is just altered very slightly depending on what era you're in. But the fact that Cairo and Rostal were the Greek words for Egypt's pretty cool.
No, that is wild. I also wanted to add, there's something interesting here, is that word triumphi, or triumph in the English, etymologically relates back to the triambus, which is a type of ecstatic victory poem that would be sung after a battle in the name of Dionysus.
Oh, was it for Dionysus? I didn't know that.
It was for Dionysus, right? Probably the most famous triambi that most people would know would be the Dionysiaca of Nonus, right? It's all about the story of Dionysus going to India and winning a victory.
Right, okay.
So just another interesting thing, yeah.
Yeah. So what do we have here? So we got the Alpha and the Omega, which is the beginning and the end, and represents, I would say in this case, it's representing the 7 vowels, and that those are the 7 planets, and that these are fate. The X we're going to get into in a minute, but that's very much to do with the ecliptic and the planets going around the ecliptic. The PR at the top is the plough and the pole, and it's the same. These are represented in exactly the same way in Aztec traditions as well, where it'll be a macaw on the top and then a dragon at the bottom. And we'll often see characters in the West depicted like this as well, like what's the Gnostic god called? Abraxas, with his chicken head and his serpent feet. The serpent feet is the planets going around the ecliptic, which is, it's too long to get into. I'll miss out so many other things, but that's the case. So I've actually written down there P for Paul, T equals the zodiac, A and O is the 7 vowels, 7 planets.
Right. And we also, again, we have this imagery of that dying and rising person, which is central to so many of these cults, whether it's with Dionysus or Attis or Osiris.
Jesus.
or Jesus or Baldur, right? That X in that row, right? Like you have the person on the cross. You have the person, you know, and in oftentimes when the Romans were crucifying people, they crucified them on an X, not on a
X.
you
Yeah.
know.
And it's that Cairo originates in Kronos. There's nothing to do with Christianity in the beginning. You know, Constantine basically assumes that for his own purposes. But Cairo is Kronos. It's time. It's all about
Yeah.
time. And I will also add that I believe that what is a PX to us, an RX to them, became the RX to us, which is the symbol for drugs. It's the same. I've literally wrote PX RX though,
I mean,
which is interesting.
I would be surprised if it weren't so. Given what we know and all of these connections, I would be more surprised if it weren't so. That's wild. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. We're getting to the real juice of it now. So I've juxtaposed the Cairo symbol over the caduceus to show that we're getting at this pole. They're the same symbol. You know, the caduceus represents many things. On one level, if we're talking astronomical, it's the pole, the planets going around the pole, you know, the pole of the Earth, and that'll do for now. I don't want to give too much away. So all three of these symbols here, we've got Boaz and Jack in the two pillars of masonry, and the two keys of the Pope are all the same symbol, and all give away a big secret. There are actually two poles. So we've got this X on the Cairo. We've got the two poles of Boaz and Yakin on the Masonic pillars, which are actually supposed to be the pillars to Solomon's temple. And then these two keys of the Pope. Now, those two keys are actually the keys of Kibel and Janus, which are again the keys to the gates of spring and autumn. And between spring, well, you should really say autumn and spring, because what happens between autumn and spring is death, as it were. It's winter. It's the keys to the mystical experience, essentially. Why two poles, and why am I talking about two poles, and why spring and autumn so important? So let's talk about these two poles first. So in your head, in your minds, walk outside, look up at the stars. We're at the center of everything, aren't we? It's obvious we're at the center of absolutely everything. I mean, you could contrive that. Actually, we are. Everything is at the center of the universe if it's infinite. However, with that aside, we know as in modern times that actually the Earth's at an angle compared to the rest of the solar system going around the sun, and that's the reason why when we look up at the planets that go past in a single band as they go around the sun, that they're all skewed off to one side. Now we know that's because the Earth skewed off. They thought it was because the planets were skewed off. Does that make sense?
For sure.
Right. Now with that in mind, if you look at the B pillar there, you'll see at the top of it is the zodiac. With the plow, you'll see the stars of the plow, and you can see the zodiac. That's because one pillar is for the zodiac. The other pillar is the pole of the Earth. Because if you imagine the solar system as it goes around the sun, that has its own pole. And we being at 20 odd degrees off from that, we have our own pole. These are the two poles. So if we go on to the next image, please. Okay, here's the big secret of the Masons, the Tarot, everything I've ever looked into in all this stuff. This seems to be the big secret. So we've got these two poles. What are they saying? Well, one pole, the pole of the Earth, has a wobble to it, and that traces. Imagine a spinning top starting to slow down, and it starts to wobble. And what was straight up is now off at an angle and making its own little circle as it starts to slow down. Well, the Earth does that. And it actually is a cycle that lasts nearly 26,000 years. It's called precession. And it's the reason why the zodiacs the zodiac signs are actually regressing. So I'm a Gemini, but because of this extra cycle, if you woke up at dawn in June, now you'll see Taurus, even though it should be Gemini. That's because of this slow wobble. It's called precession. It just means that the zodiac signs go backwards over 26,000 years. Why is this important? We'll come to find out. But it's absolutely encoded in all the religions, Christianity included. Now, we talked about Janus and Kybele a minute ago. If we look at, there's a little image there, looks like a little pretty picture frame, and it's got two characters in there. That's Janus and Kybele. One's holding a fleur-de-lis, like a pole. The other one's holding a key. And above them is IHS, which is, depending on who you believe, either in hoc signis or Jesus or some other nonsense. It's actually gematria. Gematria is a system, for anyone listening. Gematria is a system where you juxtapose letters for numbers. Simple. So Hebrew has gematria. They didn't have numbers, so they used the letters. Greek has the same system pretty much. So if we look in so it says IHS. If we look a little further down, we can see I've put IHS equals 107. And that's if you, in Hebrew, add the I, the H, and the S together, you get 107. What's so special about that? Well, I equals 9, H equals 8, S equals 90. 9 times 8 times 90 equals 6,480. That times 4 is 25,920, which is the exact number of years of this precessional cycle, which we're told that we've only just relatively recently discovered. That's in Christianity. So they're pointing at this pole star stuff, the fact that the pole moves through the constellations. Another thing I discovered was that INRI, which is above Jesus, who's a dude on a tree on a pole dying, doing this whole death resurrection stuff. INRI equals 138. 9. So it's I equals 9, N equals 40, R equals 80, I equals 9. 9 times 40 times 80 times 9 equals 25. Now it's the same number with an extra 0.
Wild.
So why? Well, let me, before I get to the why, I want to clear up the thing with the two keys, Janus and Kybele, the autumn and the spring. Between Taurus and Gemini, which is the spring, and between Scorpio and Sagittarius, which is the autumn, are 2 points that meet the Milky Way with the band of the ecliptic. The ecliptic's where the planets spin around. They're literally that flat plane where they all go around. And that meets up every equinox, every spring, every autumn, with the band of the Milky Way that travels around us. Now, they saw that as a path, a mystical path to get to the center of the universe, the center of the galaxy. You can see there's a bright spot, which is where the center of the galaxy is. Well, that's where they were trying to get to. I think they saw that as heaven or something similar. Certainly the Platonic realms there. They kind of get there through the pole star, because the pole, think of a wheel, think of an old-fashioned wheel. There's an axle that doesn't move and the wheel spins around it. So if you're trying to get to timelessness, you're trying to get past this Saturnian realm, you're going to have to get where there's no time. Well, there's no time at the pole. That's where Saturn lives, esoterically speaking. You'll almost always find Saturn at the pole. He's a pole god. Even in the early tarot, you'll see him with one of these pillars behind him.
Well, and again, like, this whole stuff relates so deeply to what we were talking about earlier with this idea of the mythic cycles and the flipping of the poles and the establishment. Like, you have this duality between the underworld and the celestial world, or like the rulers of Earth and the rulers of Olympus. You know, and there's a flipping that happens where, if you look at the true story and you look at the essence of what, like, you know, you have the god Uranus, who is the sky, and they're the first one who's castrated and brought low by Kronos, right? Yep. And then Kronos is castrated and brought low by Zeus. But
Mhm.
that Zeus energy is really the Uranos energy reborn in a new
Yeah.
form that has been,
Mhm.
so it's the cycle of death and rebirth. You always have this, like if we're going to use Nietzschean terms, you always have the Apollonian and the Dionysian,
Dionysian, yeah, and the
right?
Saturnian.
Or yeah, exactly, right? And you always have this kind of juxtaposition between the dark sun and the sun, the bright sun, right?
Yeah.
And Saturn in the earliest was seen as kind of like the dark sun, because when the
Black
sun is
sun.
down, Saturn is the most stable object in our solar system.
Yeah.
Right? It moves the least amount. It has the slowest elliptical turn. So it was something that the ancients could look to as a stable object. The only other real stable objects we have are the sun and the moon, right? So
Yeah.
they automatically would juxtapose Saturn as this sun in the underworld, right?
Yes.
Which gets us to that Dionysian energy again.
Yes.
So it's always this interplay, and it's wild when you look at these cycles, right? Because this describes how everything goes through these kind of periods. Everything as above, so below. So we're talking about the universal cycle and how even the universe flips between these two poles, and one pole will be on the top and one pole will be on the bottom. But you can even look at this through all things that live. It gets so esoteric.
Yeah. So in the spirit of cracking on, let's
Yes,
go on
sir.
to the next.
You just
Oh
get
no,
me
I
going.
love your insights, Snappy. That's why I came to you in the first place. So we're talking about the rebus.
Yes.
So we've spoken about the serpents beneath the feet, the male and the female, the mathematics and geometry, the planets. Oh look, all those things are on this rebus. There's something else on the rebus as well, this idea of the pole. So when I was looking at the when I was really analyzing it, I noticed, if you can see in the center panel where it's mostly a sphere, I've put an arrow on there, and you can see there's a 3 and a 4.
Right.
So okay, yeah, I get it. There's 3 of a triangle and 4 of a square. Okay, and there's lots of 3s and 4s in what we study. The zodiac's based on 3 and 4. So cardinal, fixed, immutable, fire, water, air, and earth.
Right.
But I noticed that there's a 1 hidden at the top where I've put that arrow. You can see the very base of it, and there's a 1 hidden there. And if you look at the other end of that
Right.
one, go down
We
to
have
the
it
bottom
to
of the
red.
sphere. There's
Yeah.
a 2 hidden. Yeah, I've written a red 2 there, and to the left of that, there's a black 2. It's just very difficult to see. So I'm going, what's going on here? And because there's a little gap underneath that 1, I'm like, they want me to draw a line here. So I did. I drew a line, and then I joined that line to the 2 and made a triangle. And when I measured it, and it gives the way to measure it on here, there's a little circle in the center of that larger circle, right in the center. That is the unit of measurement. So I took that unit of measurement and put it along that triangle, and I realized that it's a 4x9 triangle. You can see it in the top right hand corner.
Wow.
Right. So as a right angle triangle, it's a 4x9 triangle. When I took the measurements of it, it's the angle of the Earth, 23.5 degrees. So that's the pole that they're getting at. When I said that they're confused between our pole and the pole of the planets going around the sun, that's what they're pointing at. We see it as being the Earth's axis, but it's not. They saw it as where the planets are spinning around, where fate is, and where the cosmos does its stuff from. So that's hidden in again and again and again. We're getting this pole stuff, and also it's very cool that I decoded that. No one does this stuff. No one does this stuff.
And I'm just looking at this rebus too, and I also want to point out all of this Greek imagery we got with the rebus, where he's clearly in an egg. That's our Orphic egg from which Phanes is born. Right.
It's also a skull.
Yeah.
It's a skull. It's a head.
That's another good point. It's also a head, right? He's standing upon the beast, right? That dragon figure. Often Phanes has dragon feet or has like dragon, and there's just so much going on. You have the Mercury symbol there, right? And we know, like in the earliest Greek traditions, when they talk about the birth of humanity, we were described as having two souls, one that's masculine, one that's feminine, and that Zeus splits us apart as a way to keep us from ascending to the stars, right? Because Prometheus created us in his own image as being able to transcend time and space, but then that Zeus figure doesn't want us to transcend.
He's not a very nice man, that Zeus, is he?
No, well, it's that idea. We have to remember that this energy is constantly changing, but whoever is controlling that pole star is on that Olympus. They naturally do not want to relinquish control. And there's always this slowing down or this attempt to stop time. They don't want to go through the cycle of death and rebirth, and that is the fundamental evil in like the Greek tradition, is this idea of stagnation, right? Of tyranny, of this refusal to be transformed, to give up your power to the next generation. Zeus is going to have to die. It's foretold in the Sibylline prophecies by all of the oracles. The poles will flip, Zeus will go low, just like Kronos was before, and Kronos will come back. Saturn's reign will come again. The Romans were yelling about this all the time.
I think this is what they're really attempting, isn't it? To bring back Saturn, but then to supersede even Saturn. So we were just talking about these poles. It seems to be in a 4x9 triangle that they're often showing this idea of the skew of the pole. So you can see Shamash there from I think that's actually Akkadian, not Sumerian, with the wheel of the sun there, and then there are two strings holding his table up. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe they're for measuring, but that's that angle. We can see in Sumeria underneath it, in the Apkallu priests, their forward leg is always at that angle. Right. Osiris next to that, he's more often than not at that angle. I mean, we know Osiris is kind of the pole anyway, but he's at that angle. Next to that, we've got Ion from Mithras. I can't remember which temple it is. It's one of them. He's got that angle as well. So in a lot of this calendrical magical tradition, we have a lion, a bull, an eagle, and a man. You can see them represented within that figure of Ion, the bull's head, the lion's head, his human body, the wings, blah blah blah. That is a tradition that goes really far back, before Greece or anything like that. You see them in at the gates of Babylon, and to that you can see this. I don't know how to describe it. There's a guy with lion's legs, and so next to that image of Ion, there's a little black and white square, and it's got like a trapezium on there. Can you see that? Yeah,
it's like a sphinx. I see what you're talking about.
So that sphinx, the lion, the bull, the eagle, and the man. If you look at the tarot, if you add together the lion, the bull, the eagle, and the man as numbers, so the lion's 6, the bull's 2, depending on where it is in the zodiac, you get the number 26, which you'll see the lion, the bull, the eagle, and the man everywhere. That's this 26,000 year long calendar. Yeah. So one of the ways that we're encoding it is something called the Jehovah trapezium, which is you can see it there around the Sphinx's legs. Yod He Vav He for the Hebrews, which is the name of Jehovah. If you break down the gematria of that again, you get 26 again, the same number. Also, when you take that trapezium, I've broken it down on the right. You can see like lots of checkerboard colors and a trapezium. Well, I've split it down into two different triangles, which there's two. So you get a blue triangle and this checkered triangle. Above that, you get another checkered triangle, and then you get another blue triangle on the outside. That blue triangle is the exact same triangle as we've just been working with, this 4x9 triangle. And then the triangle next to it is a Pythagorean 3-4-5 triangle, which they're all obsessed with. The Masons are obsessed with that 3-4-5 triangle. you'll know it because it makes up the dimensions of your TV screen. So many
Yeah,
things that
Pascal's
you find.
triangle, right? It's like
Yeah,
diamond. It's intrinsic to understanding the universe, right? And this again relates to that
yes,
idea of drawing down the stars. It goes back to the number 666 or
yeah,
77 times 7, right? It's all
yeah,
related to these triangles again.
yes. And I think they're seeing that as the basic pixel of the universe is what they're doing. And I'll add that in that top right, we can see an image of the piazza from the Vatican, which is clearly a vesica piscis, which is the two circles that you'll see in sacred geometry, which is the foundation of all sacred geometry. And when you draw like an oval around those two, you get all these measurements, and that's at the Vatican. In fact, I've discovered a lot of this stuff because I decoded it all from a plan view of the Vatican. When you look at it, it's a key with a keyhole in the grip. It's very complex and worth another one of these podcasts again.
Yeah,
So let's
yeah,
move
no,
on.
I'd love to talk that. Yeah.
So again, it's this processional cycle. Why the totally pointing at the fact that there's this very slow backwards movement of the Earth, which changes the pole star depending on what era it is over 25,920 years. Great. What the F has that got to do with the zodiac and a calendar? Well, you could see a day is much like a year. The sun goes up, you get, the morning's like spring, midday's like summer, the evening's like autumn. Yeah. Well, we do the same thing with this long 25,920 year cycle. So what happens then when you start looking at how long is a month? How long is half a year? How long is a season? Oh, snappy. Let's go on to this next let's go on to this next one.
Exciting.
Right. Well, what happens? We get all these gorgeous cosmic numbers that you'll have all heard of if you like music or have researched any of this stuff before. We get numbers like 432, 864, 1440, 2160, 3600, 64. There's very few of them and they repeat. What are these numbers? Well, Plato designed the Platonic solids, which are just the most basic three-dimensional shapes you can have, where the corners of those shapes touch a sphere, touch the inside of a sphere. Simple as that. There are only 5 of them in the end of the 5 elements, which is very suspicious. And when we look at the numbers, all of those numbers correlate to a period of time in this long calendar. Not only that, but the size of the moon, the size of the Earth. Let's take the cube, for example. If we add together the internal angles of a cube, we get 2160, which is also the diameter of the moon.
Oh, wow.
If we add those first 4 together via earth and water, we get the diameter of the Earth. It's all measurements. From these, you can derive the distance of the sun from the Earth, from the size of Saturn compared to Jupiter. It's absolutely nuts. And there's a few people cottoning onto this now, and there's a lot of work currently being done in these areas. It's so fundamental to the cosmos that basically you get things like the speed of light. Here we go. Speed of light in the vacuum is 3 million kilometers a second. Then the light in a solar day measures 25,920 million kilometers. So in one day, light travels the exact area. That exact number is the same as that big long count processional cycle. You do 25,920 breaths in an average day for the average person. 86400 is how many times an adult heart beats in one day, and that's also the size of the Earth. 432 is the square root of the speed of light, and also middle C for Pythagorean tuning. And that's what we're getting at. All this are harmonics in Pythagorean tuning, all of them. And 24 hours a day, 60 minutes an hour, 14 minutes a day. It's time. Time it seems, according to this, is giving the blueprint of the creator. This is why they're obsessed with the pole. Because here are the Lego parts to build a universe.
Wow. That's
Yes.
incredible.
Innit? Yeah. So, again, I don't want to get buckled, even though this is like the pinnacle of the presentation, as it were. Let's not get strapped down into it too much. So let's explain a little of this before we have to start winding it up. So if we look to the top left, though, we can see a triangle from Egypt, which shows Horus, Isis, and Osiris on that. Famously, they put the Pythagorean triangle as a combination of these three gods. And after a while of really studying this stuff, I realized that what they were saying was there are masculine numbers, feminine numbers. Masculine numbers I've put in red, feminine numbers I've put in blue. And then you get these sun numbers out of it. Like the answer to the Pythagorean riddle of the Pythagorean triangle is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's it. You add one side to the other side and you get the third side. Well, that's like having a child, isn't it? You got Horus, you got Osiris, Isis, get together, have a little maths baby. Well, when I plugged in these numbers, when I'd realized there were masculine and feminine numbers, I'm not going to how I found that. I've been researching these Templar pillars that I found in a local graveyard. And I've realized there were masculine and feminine numbers in this sequence. And when I plugged them into that Pythagorean triangle, boom, I understood it all. I'm not going to explain it all here. If anyone would like to look at the numbers in those two strips in the center, you'll see that these numbers are so very harmonic that when you put them into this triangle, let's do one just to show. So we got, let's go 108. So if we go 3 down, so we've got 108 and 144 in red and blue. Yeah. They equal 180 on that third line, on that third long line of the triangle. Then you get the area, the perimeter, and the hypotenuse of the 3 next columns. The area is 7776, which comes up further down the line. We get 432 as the perimeter. We've already discussed 432, and 86.4, which is the size of the. It's all. They're so very harmonic. They predict the next sequence of numbers. So if I plug those numbers we've just gotten out of the area, perimeter, and hypotenuse, and I plug those into the triangle again, I'd get another perfectly harmonic triangle. It's if you know triangles and maths, this is like impossible, incredible, unbelievable. Wow. And I note that this is all based on that 4x9 triangle that is the pole and the Pythagorean 3-4-5 triangle. And I've put I think that's Ra on the right hand side, and his headdress is 4x9. It's that 4x9 triangle.
Beautiful.
Ra, the top dude, top guy.
Yeah, the sun.
The creator, not the creator down here. I realize I'm on. So there we go. And what happens is, my name's Ryan7, and I plugged it into a 7-sided shape, and then I realized that. So think of a pentagram, which is basically a pentagon with all its sides collapsed in, so they all join up. Well, you do the same with a 7-sided shape. You collapse those sides in, and what happens? We get near as damn it both of these triangles out of it. Next slide, please. Tarot again. Remember tarot? We're talking about tarot. The magician's wand in that first card is at 23.5 degrees. It's that same 4x9 triangle that we're talking about. I mean, as far as I can see, this is the biggest secret and indicator of these mysteries. And then we can see the card itself, which is 4x9, is actually detailed, is filled out in the middle by 4, 3, 4, 5 triangles. So these are the Pythagorean mysteries, literally encoded in that first card. So anyone says it's just a game, I tell you to just kiss my arse. Excuse me.
I love it too, and this so interrelates with the idea, the esoteric mysteries of the magician as the one who writes the narrative that creates reality as it unfolds, right? That's
He's the scribe.
Exactly.
He's the scribe. If you tell me, so if you come, oh, by the way, Mr. Scribe, I want you to tell my wife that I'm bringing I've attached £5,000 for her to, for investment. Oh yeah, okay, £4,000. That's fine by me. Give it to her. I keep £1,000, or £1 or whatever you want to do. Anyway, next slide, please, Snappy. Well, we're on a roll. We're nearly done. So, what happens when you put the triangles, all these numbers, and the 7-sided shape together? Well, you get the size of the Earth and the Moon. Now, the Earth's in the big circle, and the Moon's there at the top. We can see 1080. Look, 1080, 2160. Do you know what 1080 is in your everyday life, or 2160?
Not offhand. What do you?
So that's your TV. 1080 is
Right,
HD, and then 4K is 2160.
Wow.
And so you start adding these together, and you get the size of the Earth and all these other things that I was talking about before. But what's starting to happen here is, by way of doing this, you've squared the circle. You've heard of the ancient geometry. You must square the circle. Well, I've squared the circle there, which means that the perimeter of the circle, the perimeter of the square and the circumference of the circle are the same measurement, near as damn it. That's amazing. But if we go on to the next one.
Beautiful.
Here we go. So, as we said, pentagon. The pentagram is a pentagon collapsed. Well, what happens with when you get a 7-sided shape, a heptagon? When you collapse those, you get 2 different stars. You get a thin one and a fat one. When you add them together, amazing things start to happen. You get the exact dimensions of the pyramid, for example. And I went, oh, exact dimensions of the pyramid? That's weird. What happens if I put the pyramid over the top of it? Oh, that fits. So if you go on to the next slide, please. When I put the first diagram together with my heptagon, I literally got the pyramids and Stonehenge. It fits per every shaft, apart from 2 shafts, which I can explain why they're not the same. But every angle in there is covered. Every line, every angle is covered in the pyramid and at Stonehenge. You just pick. Let's look at Stonehenge. There are those 8 blue stones in the middle. There's a line at the side of them. Everywhere you look, there's a line, and I never change anything. I just leave them the same. The pattern at the background.
That's incredible. Wow.
Oh, again, another presentation on its own, but we must carry on. Here's the pattern. The left triangle is the pyramid, is the same shape as the pyramid, and that's in the middle of the pattern, slightly highlighted yellow. I know it looks very confusing, everybody, but it's actually quite simple. It's a 7-sided shape with a couple of circles around it. Simple. What's also hidden in there on the right is the image of that's the geometric philosopher's stone from alchemy. That triangle with the circle in it on the right in purple. Again, take this in. If you want me back to talk about these things in the future, I will do that. But next slide, please. It's there in the rebus. Difficult to look at, but if we do an easy thing to pull out of it, we can see the 7 planets around the outside. And if we look at the rebus in the center, we'll see a green cross goes through the center of that rebus, and there's a line connecting, a black line drawn on the actual image of the rebus itself by the artist. We'll see that there are lines in that pattern that follow along and link them all up.
Wow.
Easy peasy. I have to carry on, Snappy, because
I just wanted to point out too, though, that you have that purple triangle in the circle right over the beast, which is the theriac, right? The beast is the drugs that create the rebus. That's wild.
Yeah. Well, and also it's not just external drugs. It's your endocrine system as well. So it's internal drugs. Yeah. So now we look at the Masonic keystone, which is very important to many Masons. And so there's the image with the circle on it. Next to that, there's an image with a cross in it. I've put those two triangles in there, the purple and the blue triangle, because those two triangles that we're obsessed with in this presentation are in there. So I went, hang on a minute, what happens if I put that in my pattern? Oh, look, it fits perfectly. You see the dotted white lines on the Masonic keystone? Well, they fit perfectly over the pattern. And when I pull apart that Masonic keystone, as if it were a, that you can pull a cube apart into like a crucifix form,
Right.
like the neck of it, yeah? Well, I did the same thing. And it forms back into that Yod Hey Vav Hey trapezium I was talking about a little while ago.
Wild.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Again, let's carry on. I'm sorry for not stopping.
No, it's all good.
Here's the pattern over a Masonic tracing board. They've used it slightly differently, and they've actually used each of the nodes where the lines cross over. They've used that as a place to measure. So if we look at the right panel, we can see everywhere there's a red circle. There's a line that goes down it, and if you look where the line is, you'll see there's an implement there, and they've used it as to trace the tracing board, as it were. Again, let's move on. Oh, look, the same shape on an ancient handbag. That's actually a weight, but it's not in modern days.
Samaria in Babylon,
Yeah.
right?
It's really the arc of the sun and the earth. That's what it is. But I realized just from pattern recognition, I realized that you place that Masonic tracing board over that handbag, and it's the same. They line up perfectly. There's a combined image on the top right there, and if you just follow where the pillars go, you'll see it's the same. It's just the same. It's the same, and it's because this pattern is used to draw it.
Wild.
And there are 2,500 years between those two images. Göbekli Tepe, the oldest site we know of, and again, it fits. They've used it as the measurement. So you look at the horizontal lines, particularly, you'll see every time there's a break in the pillar or in the icon, you'll see that it measures. I honestly think this is one of the most important discoveries of the 21st century. I just can't get anybody to listen to me of any importance.
They're trying to obscure this stuff, Honestly.
I just think they're too stupid to listen. They won't even entertain it. All right, so this pattern's in the tarot. Look at the Magician's Wand. Everything follows. There are better examples, but if we look down the side of his breast here, we'll see the two lines follow the lines of his breast, the line of his wand, the top of his hat, the actual line that cuts off the number 1 from the rest of the card. It all follows. I've used this pattern to draw my own tarot. So
there you go.
Next image, please. So I think what they're doing is putting pins in a board, maybe a roundel of wood, and they're putting pins in it, and they're putting strings across it, and then they can etch into the wood, because obviously these are wood cuts, aren't they? So they're etching into the wood along these strings. As most builders and architects and masons use strings and pins to draw out these things. And if we go on the next image, when I read, sorry, one before that.
This one?
Oh, I think one down. Is there not? All right, you're an image short for some reason. Doesn't matter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What I wanted to say was, when you reduce all those pins down, it is pretty obvious, just because of how precise they are, that image has been drawn with that. The only time you'll find a line differentiates from the lines I've drawn is because it's a curve, and the nature of a curve is that it goes above and below a line. No, it's not a straight line. Next image, please. All right, right. So we've got Visconti card there. We've got I think it's 1800s, and then we've got Crowley's deck. And if you care to examine any of those, you'll see that they are drawn with that pattern. Let's look at the legs on Crowley's fool, for example, going up his torso. You can see underneath his arms that follows the line. If we move to the arm on the center image, you can see that, you know, they've got a very awkward position. You know, that's a very unusually drawn image if you remove that pattern. Very awkward. So we can see following down his arm, there's a line. Following down his staff, there's a purple line.
It makes perfect sense because, like, the intersections are right at the center of the chest. They're right at the genitals, right?
Yep.
They go up and down the legs, the arms, like you're saying, right? They cross right in between the eyes. Like, it's wild.
Yep. Again, let's not dwell on this. Another version. You can rather than use the pattern itself, I've kind of used the geometry of the pattern and just picked certain bits out. But all of the cards, all of the good, what I consider real tarot, are drawn with this image. So let's have a look at a couple of other quick examples, and I think we've almost wrapped this up. I like the Hermit's hourglass here. I've dulled it down a bit so we can see the green over the top, but you know, an hourglass is kind of an X shape, isn't it? Really,
it is. Yeah.
It's, you know, two triangles, so that's drawn within an X. Again, his staff, his hand, the limits of his hat. I think actually, if you look at the next image, there's another one. There's a big cross in the middle, where the trumpets intersect, and then it's drawn again. God's eye. They're often bringing eyes into the center of the image, I've noticed, so that, you know, it's so esoteric, Snappy.
It's beautiful. I love it. Wow. I think, we're getting to it.
Yeah, there's like a New Jerusalem there in the top right hand corner, and it's, apart from, you can think, you've got to think to yourself, it's an artist with a brush, and so if it goes out the lines a little bit, it's no big deal. But that New Jerusalem stroke heaven image there in the top right is clearly drawn with it.
Right, and that's the idea of the birth of the city too. This is deep esotericism going on in here. Wow.
So that's the end of that pattern thing. Everyone breathe. I can stop sweating for a minute. So here's the thing I wanted to show you the most, Snappy, which is very, very cool. So the Mithras liturgy.
PGM.
Yes. Not PG though. Very R. Hard R.
Yes.
So, cut a long story short, the PGM's clearly a guided drug trip. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%.
Sorry, the Mithras liturgy, not just the PGM, but yeah, the Mithras.
Yeah, it's a drug, right? It's an interesting one because it's not strictly Mithraic, right? It's using the Mithraic as like a kind of a
ornaments, yeah,
exactly. But it's clearly a guided drug trip, and it's this this birth and rebirth kind of mystery again, you know, with sex as the central rite as well.
So we probably homosexual sex as well, from what I can determine in that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
So in the Mithras liturgy, you become a star so that you can travel through the cosmos. In Mithraism, you're naturally going as the levels of progression through the cult are named after the planets. There's a Mercury one, Corvix. There's basically the planets with another name over the top. The sun's Leo. Blah blah blah. So in the Mithras liturgy, you become a star to travel through all these places. Bearing in mind that in Mithraism, we've been the moon, we've been the sun to get to these higher grades. Then we go, so we turn into a star. Then we go and visit the moon. Then we go look at the sun. When we look at the sun, you shake your head left and right. I know it sounds silly, but you shake your head left and right, and a funnel, a trumpet, comes out from the center of the sun and forms a portal for you to travel up. Judgment card there. The most prominent feature is this trumpet coming down, playing 7 notes. You know, it's just fine again. The North Pole. It's all the same thing. And then you meet. First of all, you meet Helios, Sol, and then you meet Mithras. Is the black sun. We talked about the shining sun. Mithras is the black sun, and Mithraism is totally obsessed with this processional cycle where the star signs go backwards, and they say in order to overcome fate, Mithras grabs hold of that long procession, and he's the one that's turning it back. So the forces of light and darkness don't get the upper hand at any one time. So that you're turning, as you've been saying the whole time, he's in this case, he's the one that's turning those poles. He's the one that's making, no, you're not winning this one. We're gonna help out the humans, as it were, by making sure everything changes still in these bigger cycles.
It still comes back to that force of justice, right? The judgment card. This idea of bringing about, right? The poles need to be flipped when things are out of balance, when things are no longer in harmony, and there needs to be a resetting, right? An ending of tyranny,
yeah.
right?
And so you got a little boy with his cheeky bottom there in the middle being reborn.
Yeah, beautiful.
He's got his back to us because we don't know what he looks like. The future. Right, Snappy. Here we go. This is so cool now. Right. So, a man called Reza Asasi was looking at the Tauroctonies. For everybody out there, a Tauroctony is the main cult image of Mithras. He's pinning down a bull, holding its back leg down, and stabbing it in its neck. I could do another presentation on decoding why stabbing him in his neck's got to do with mushrooms, but let's carry on. So, Reza Asasi had realized that when he put the Taurocta, the image of Mithras slaying the bull, over a certain area of stars, that it fit perfectly. Amazingly so. I'm an artist in real life. I have good pattern recognition and good pattern holding. So, put that aside for a moment. Here's the constellation. It's, if we look on the left panel, it's slightly made up of Draco and a few other stars, and the plough and the pole star are next to it. The pole star is actually at the top of Ursa Minor there. It's on its tail, on the handle of the pan. That's the pole star. Right. The next image there, which is just stars. If you look closely at the next panel, you can see that I've traced out what is an obvious an asterism is not a constellation, but an obvious pattern in stars. So where is this asterism? Where is the center of that asterism? It's at this second ecliptic pole. It's the pole of the planet spinning around. It's not the North Pole, which we can see at the handle of the pan, but it's this second pole. So if you go on the next image, there's Mithras. These same stars laid over the Tauroctony. Fit beautifully. Mr. Reza Asasi, you've got the coolest name in the world, and this is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We can even see like the eye of the bull's lit up, his eye, you know, down the shape of his back. Snappy, get ready. Drum roll. Next image. Those same stars are the reason why the magician on the good tarot is the shape he is. I've literally popped those stars over a negative image of I think that's the Deeste, the Sforza deck, and the Thoth deck. Wow. And when you put those two stars that are over Mithras' eyes, over the eyes of the magician, it all lines up. Even down to, it's a very unusual shape, the Crowley magician. Like, his body's weird and contorted. I know why now. Because he's drawn by that pattern, and he's drawn because of the stars. This is a constellation nobody knows about. And he's in the very first, it's in the very first card. This secret pole constellation.
That's incredible.
That scar still on your head, Snappy. I wanted it to go boom.
Wow, I love it. No, this is great. Wow, this is incredible. No, I see what you're getting at. That's wild. Holy shit.
So, as I said to the person that I'd done that presentation for, the tarot's not just a game. It's the ancient mysteries. And I'm sure there's lots more in there that I don't know about.
No, that was brilliant. You did an amazing job, and I'm going to have to look more into these patterns because, like, you can really see it in the Thoth deck because, you know, Lady Frida Harris really kept a lot of those angular lines. So I'm sure there's multiple patterns that are going to line up perfectly. That's incredible find. And it makes
Yeah.
sense too with all of the mystery imagery that I'm familiar with already, that I'd already had been seeing in the tarot. It just expands upon it. Brilliant.
I think all the main takeaway that you can get from it is those numbers. If you can take in those numbers and start to use them as they did to build cathedrals and the pyramids and Stonehenge and tarot cards and make artwork with it or make music with it or all these different things, you're literally playing with cosmic harmony. And what an amazing superpower gift to be able to receive.
Such a good point. So what did you think, Dion? What is your perspective of the presentation?
Oh, you're on fire today. Pure fire.
Cheers, bro.
Astrotheology, sacred geometry, inside the tarot. Love it.
He stuck right in there.
Yeah, we're gonna need
Ryan Da Vinci there.
Say that again, sorry.
Ryan Da Vinci's on fire today.
Da Vinci. You got to say it properly. Da Vinci. Ryan. Cool. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, it made me smile at the end because you kind of forget. It becomes a bit mundane, doesn't it? When you've been working with the same thing, and then when you're showing somebody else, it's like, oh shit, this is really cool.
Well, it's just, the tarot is such a wild thing because, I mostly use the tarot as a form of of connecting with energies and as a representation of the divine templum, right? Each one of these images is a deity, right? Even the pip numbers, right? They all represent and they tell you mythological stories. They connect in that kind of a way. So when I'm connecting with the tarot, I'm reading it in a very different way than you were presenting here, but it's still the same idea fundamentally. Like all of this is incorporating, it's just telling you it in different ways. If you look at a lot of the myths, they're telling you the same star stories. They're using the same imagery, right?
Well, I think that's the point, that it's got nothing to do with the cards or what people were thinking. It is the stuff that's up there. They're measuring the heavens and seeing what's up there and then putting it in the cards secretly. Simple. Those archetypes you're talking about, which I totally use the tarot for, I'll have one on me. I need this job. I need to get this working. I'll have it on me as a talisman. To pick the right card that suits what I want to achieve and hold it on me so my consciousness is always on there. I totally use it for the other things, but these things are also in there, and I don't think anyone should force himself to use the tarot in any specific way. Tarot's you. Most importantly, the tarot is as above, so below. Right?
It's a divine unfolding of the universe in a binary system,
Yes.
And it shows you how to reform, to come from the one to the many and then back again. And it's that unfolding and refolding of creation, which is essentially divine mystery, And anyone who's like a true mystic recognizes this. I've been really getting into Edgar Allan Poe recently, and there's this amazing poem he has called Eureka. And at the end of that poem, he's like, I'm more certain of the cycle of from the one to the many and the many to the one than I am if I'm even alive or breathing or perceiving reality.
You said Eureka? That's where I'm at right now. I'm on the side of the road in Eureka.
Oh, wow.
Really?
I pulled over to do this video with y'all up by the Oregon-California border. A small little town with Victorian houses in occult history.
Wicked.
That's so
I keep
wild.
thinking you're in the passenger seat, Dion, because we drive on the other side of the road. So I'm like, oh, how is he getting there? Is he leaning over while he watches the YouTube?
That's too funny. So thank you so much for that presentation, Ryan. Is there anything you want to kind of leave our audience with after that? Like, what do you want everyone to take home as sort of your central message?
What? There you go. If you're not seeing the universe like that, in that kind of what is going on, you've lost. You've already lost. Go and join the rest of the zombies. If you've got that sense of wonder, from that, at least that it's some of this is very difficult to understand. However, it should certainly invoke a sense of wonder and things undiscovered. So please go out there and bring me and Snappy and Dion some new things, because we'd love to see them.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea, and I think like this presentation really highlights just how much knowledge our ancestors had. Like, we often love to think of our ancestors as somehow more primitive, and they may have been less technological, but they certainly were not primitive. And I just think that a lot of this information was held within the upper echelons within various countries, or got destroyed in war, or got lost, because it was power, right? The power to build buildings, the power to shape the universe, to transform reality,
We still have these things now. We call them trade secrets.
Yeah.
If you give away your trade secrets, you're instantly at a loss. I can kind of see why you would keep certain things secret. However, I'm profaning this everywhere I can, because
You sound like
it amazes me. Yeah.
Profaning the mysteries.
Yeah.
Right. Fantastic.
Yeah, there you go. Fantastic. How about you, Dion? Anything that you wanted to say about Ryan's presentation or about the tarot?
Well, the word on the title of the episode, along with it, the word inception, tarot inception, and the word inception meaning to create. And if tarot is a story, create your own story. If your life is a tarot, write your own story. Create it. It could be novel and new and spontaneous. Have some fun with it.
That's so essential to all magical creation. And then you're taking on that position of the magician, the scribe, right? You're writing the narrative. You're dictating your own future, right? That's beautiful. I love that.
Ryan Da Vinci gives it kiss. Mwah.
Well, this was
Wicked.
a lot
No,
of fun, Ryan.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for coming, and we'll have to have you on again to talk
Please
more
do.
about this kind of stuff.
I've got loads more of this stuff.
We got to unpack like the Mithraic mysteries. We got to go into all of it, so keep in touch with us on the Discord. And everyone, if you like what you see here from Ryan is a video essayist, a documentarian filmmaker. He has his own channel on YouTube, Ryan7. If you search him, he'll be the first thing that comes up. He also does a series of podcasts with his friends. Amazing stuff. Him and I did an interview a few weeks back where we talk about our introduction to esotericism and occultism, and just kind of shot the shit. It's a great interview.
We talked about mushrooms the whole time, Snappy. That's what we did.
Yeah,
just talk about mushrooms and tricks.
Pretty much. Next week, Dion and I will be back with an episode on Tennessee. We're going to dive deep into the mysteries of Tennessee, and there's some weirdness there, right? Do you want to talk a minute about that, Dion, and what you got planned for us?
Oh, you're going to get everything. Elongated skulls, cannibalism, celestial alignments, Ryan style with the sky and temples on the ground, ancient mounds, AT&T's proprietary technology that includes 6G, chemical sniffing, all kinds of weird stuff. Tennessee's going crazy. Cults, Graceland.
Memphis, right? Even the Egyptian mysteries are present in Tennessee.
Oh, they got a lot of stuff. I didn't even know, but you were going to Tennessee.
We're going to Tennessee. We're also going to go to the Appalachians. We're going to talk about, that's one of the oldest parts of the entire Earth and has some of the largest cave systems of anywhere on Earth. So yeah. Cryptids galore, weirdness, it's going to be fun.
I'll be there. I'll be watching.
Awesome.
I watch every Sunday. Genuinely, I watch every Sunday.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm waiting for Dion to mispronounce things. He's brilliant.
I can't even say my own name. Whatever. But we're going to have you back coming up soon because we're doing the Shakespearean episode.
Oh, yeah.
And we got people there in England. They're going to go to these sites, go to this graveyard, go to the church. On the other side of the pond there, it's going to be fun. Baconian mysteries, ciphers. I'm ready to see how you take this apart and deconstruct the Shakespearean mysteries.
I might do it from a local graveyard, which is where Edward Kelly raised a dead person to find out where he'd hid the money for his wife.
Yep.
That's where I think I'll do it from.
Yep.
That's amazing. Edward Kelly is such a character, such the prototypical magician, both a fraudster, a drug addict, and also this incredibly intelligent, advanced person. I mean, you know, this is what a lot of people like to say, that Edward Kelly is a complete like shyster, but I'm like, how do you fool John Dee, the world's smartest man? You know, there's obviously something more to him.
Let's talk about this another time. I think
Yeah.
else we'll end up getting.
Yeah, we'll never let you go. It's getting late there back in the UK.
I really need to talk about it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. This was a lot of fun. Everyone, have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next week. And Ryan will be back soon. Make sure you like, subscribe, check out his channel again. That's Ryan7. All right, everyone. Take care.
Ciao.